Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're joined by the incredible Lorraine Wright, MBE entrepreneur, educator, and founder of Diaspora to Home. Lorraine is passionate about helping the diaspora invest confidently in Ghana, avoid the common mistakes, and build real generational wealth. In this episode, we dive into the realities of investing in Ghana, the opportunities people often overlook, and Lorraine's own journey building across two continents. Let's get into it. Please welcome Lorraine Wright.
Yes, people, welcome back to the Property Strategist Podcast. We've got your host, Akin of the Akin in the place today. And we've got a special guest today. How's it going, Lorraine?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, man, it's good to have you, man. I think the last time I actually saw you, I think I've only met you in person once. And this was like last year. I think we had like an event we did with W Can,
Yeah.
maybe like a year or 2 years ago. And I remember seeing you in the audience. I mean, like, I need to catch up with you at some point in the future. So it's good to actually catch up with you today.
Yeah.
How's things? How's everything at the moment?
Things are good. I remember that time, and I mean, shout out to what you guys been doing, because when I was just listening to you guys talk, I was like, nah, you guys are onto something. So I appreciate you guys having me on. But things have been good. I've been trying to create that narrative, so I'm looking forward to the conversation today.
No, 100%, 100%. I mean, before we get into some of the questions, you want to just give like a brief overview of who you are and what you do?
So I'm Lorraine. I am the founder of a consulting company called Diaspora to Home. I'm a British-born Ghanaian. I'm all about helping people that live in the diaspora purchase property in Ghana.
Okay, nice. And just to get started, I mean, what sparked the interest and how long have you been doing this for as well? Like, what was the whole backstory of getting started in connecting people?
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? Shout out to all my Ghanaian family out there. But we know that since the year of return, a lot of eyes have been on Ghana. Tourism has increased. There's been a whole load of like spending and investment going on, really encouraging a lot of the global diaspora to travel back to Ghana. But for me in particular, I'm British born Ghanaian, but I grew up in the UK, and there are people that have already transitioned, they've already moved back to Ghana. But there was times when our parents will take us on holiday to Ghana, and those times it was like punishment. You wouldn't even want to be going with your parents. You would be like, nah, I'm not going, because you're staying in the family house, you're staying in the auntie's house, uncle's house, whatever it may be. And for me, I was like, this just can't be me. So long and short of it is my mum actually gave me advice to buy land in Ghana. This was a long time ago, and I appreciate her even giving me that heads up. But also, a lot of us have watched our parents build brick by brick their houses back home in Ghana, and we've seen the stress they've go through. We've seen that they've sent money back home to their uncles or family members, and they've never been able to build the houses properly. And so many things have happened. So when I bought land, but then I went to go and buy property. So many mistakes happened to me. There were so many issues. And I said that, for me, I didn't have any help. And I wanted to make sure that I changed the narrative to encourage other people that are not only Ghanaians, but I encouraged and liking what's happening with Ghana to get involved in buying property and investing in real estate in Ghana. And then also just to support those of us that travel back and forth. We've seen our parents do it. Now is our time to do it. Now is our time to be able to invest in real estate as well and have a piece of Ghana and also leave that legacy. So yeah, that's a kind of like long-winded answer just to explain, when things kind of got started.
It makes sense, and I think we're all kind of we all had the mindset that of course that we're here. Like I was born. I'm not necessarily British, but I'm European. And you have the mindset of okay, cool. You build here, your wealth here. You start here. Obviously, our parents brought us here, so there's an advantage in that, and there's certain pros and cons with being here and being able to get started with that. But also always having an eye back home on building wealth, and I'm seeing it as a like more important thing year on year to actually have that connection back home, just because of the fact that things here are quite tough, especially when you're talking specifically around real estate and property, um, the returns, um, the lifestyle that we want to start living as well. All these things are all coming into it, and it's just meaning that these conversations are going to become more and more prominent. So that's why I just believe your platform, although I already know it's doing fantastically well, I just see there's going to be so much more to come from it. So it's quite exciting. Um, let's say when it comes to supporting clients, what's your typical client that you support? Like, what's their background and what they after?
Yeah, do you know what? It's so varied and it's global. The great thing about doing things online is that you have a global audience. And so a
Yeah.
lot of our audience could be Ghanaian in terms of they left Ghana and they moved. Like I think it breaks down to three areas, right? They've lived in Ghana and they've moved out of Ghana, like you've explained, like our parents, etc. And they're looking to build a home in Ghana so that when they're traveling back and forth, they've got a base, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of like bucket one. Bucket two are the people that have caught onto the wave of Dirty December. They're traveling back and forth to Ghana. They're traveling to West Africa, and they're like, "Well, I'm spending so much money on Airbnbs. Why am I paying somebody else's rent when I can just have my own property and invest in that and start generating income even when I'm not in Ghana, right?" And that category is also the digital nomads. A lot of people are now working remotely. They want to be able to work abroad. A lot of people in expat communities are moving to Ghana. So it's an opportunity for them to have a base and live somewhere. And you've got the third. You've got African Americans who are my biggest clientele. They don't necessarily come from Ghana, but they have caught onto this wave that they are looking at their ancestral line. They're looking at where do they come from, right? And realizing they've got a percentage of them that is there in the motherland and they want to reconnect through that. So you'll find a lot of people that are relocating, they're establishing roots or they're reconnecting with their roots, right? And they're doing that through real estate. So you've got people that are investing and you've got people trying to build a home. And then you've also got people trying to build retirement. It kind of breaks down into those kind of three buckets.
Makes sense. That makes sense. I guess you can't really say which one you enjoy working with the most, I guess. But I guess which ones, what challenges are posed by different ones? Like what some of the things that they pop up from each one?
It's really quite different. African Americans, I'm not gonna lie, they actually have money. So they're
Mm.
ready to just throw money
I knew
left.
you were gonna say that, I'm not gonna lie. I knew you were gonna say that.
Americans, like, there's a very distinct difference between the wealth of the Brits and the wealth of the Americans.
Yeah, that's a conversation by itself. But yeah,
Like,
100%.
seriously, I'm like, Brits will be like, okay, how can I get a mortgage? How can I pay in installments? Americans are
Mm,
like, okay, well, tell me where I can lay down the deposit. I'm just ready to just pay this right now. So
mm.
it's really interesting in that. And I'm really happy. I would love to unpack that
Yeah.
but it's so clear. It's so clear
Mm,
that the Brits, and look, I'm a Brit, so I know how our economy is. But the reality
yeah.
is, most of my clients will be like, not hesitant, but they'll take their time. The Americans
No,
are ready to go in for it.
I think not even just the money, because I have this as well when I'm doing a lot of property sourcing and things here, and obviously now we're looking to expand and go other places. But it's almost like the mindset is like
Mhm.
there's another level of like convincing
Mhm.
or confidence that they need to have before they go.
Mhm.
Whereas it feels like globally it's slightly different. Like it's just different everywhere. Like they say, for example, UK's people are quite conservative, but people in Europe are even more conservative because it's not really a more like they don't really believe in owning your owning investment properties. In Europe, a lot of places they just want to own their own home or even just rent. It's not really a big thing to own. Whereas so UK compared to America might be worse, but we're better than other places in Europe. And then you got places like the UAE, and it's completely different things. Like even in terms of looking for investments as well, the way we look at it and the way we approach the whole process is it yeah, it's just completely different. And I just found that
Yeah.
I get the fact, like you mentioned, that we know what kind of economy we're in at the moment, but yeah, it's really difficult sometimes to work in these places. I'll be honest. Yeah,
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think it also goes down to there's a cultural thing. You managed to
yeah,
distinguish that very clearly, right? There is a mindset, but there's a culture. And the culture
mm,
of us being, I remember, I mean, this has got nothing to do with real estate, but I remember being in business school. In business school, it was like Americans, Brits, Eastern Europeans, etc. The Brits will be very hesitant to even answer questions, but the Americans are
mm,
like straight. They're right, straight there. They're not hesitant.
mm,
So what is it about our risk level and our risk tolerance? Maybe
yeah.
there's something about it in there which also feeds into the way that we invest. And I'll be really interested to look at what global numbers are like in terms of investment potential and people who actually like what generally the risk tolerance are on a cultural level. Because I think that's
Mm,
probably also where it stems from.
100%, 100%. I mean, it'll be good to get into in this next part, um, you walking us through a full process because ultimately, this podcast is going to go to people that are interested in investing in Ghana, whether they're from the UK, US, UAE, wherever they're based. Can you walk me through a sort of like full process from initial discovery call to handing over? Obviously, a quick synopsis, I guess, or summary, but if you can run through that process as well, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, it's exactly what I do. So people reach out to me, they'll be like, oh, they've seen the stuff that I do, they would like to buy a property in Ghana. So they have that call with me, right? And then I start to understand, like, what is your why? So it's important to understand what is it the reason why you want to invest? Is it to generate returns? Is it for you to build your retirement? Is it for you to get capital appreciation? Is it for rental income? Is it because you want somewhere to live? Is it that you're a hybrid worker? So you might want to spend half a year in Ghana, you want to spend half a year in the UK or UAE or wherever you are in the world. So understanding the why first and foremost is important. So I go through that process with the individuals, and depending on where you are, it depends on the path we will take. So if you are somebody, for example, who is looking to invest, and predominantly those people are in the diaspora, who are that kind of category of people, they're looking to invest, they're looking for returns, right? So the reality is I always preface it with, I'm not a financial advisor, and I always ask people to go and get their own financial advice, of course, to understand their individual circumstance and wealth, right? But there is a general house buying rule. Typically, we say that you shouldn't is identifying your budget. So typically, if you look at your annual salary, I wouldn't recommend you spending more than 3 times your annual salary on a property in Ghana. So once we've identified what the budget is and how much you can realistically spend, go and do your financial advice, go and make sure you can afford it first and foremost, and then come back to me. Now we've determined that, okay, you've got this budget. How are you going to pay for it? What's the financial plan, right? So are you saying that you want to pay installments? Like I said, shout out to my Brits. You're always looking for installments, right? You're looking for mortgages, right? Or you're looking to just put the cash straight down. Shout out to my Americans. I love you guys. You guys are ready to pay right now, right? Or the UAE. I mean, my clients out there, they got the money. They're ready to go, you know? So it depends on which way you're going. If you're going to go down the mortgage route, then what we normally do is we normally find the property, right? And identify what the kind of property is, what the developer is that you're going to work with, and go to the banks and understand whether or not you'll be able to be entitled to a mortgage from a Ghanaian bank. Now, Ghanaian bank, we can talk about that probably separately, because the whole mortgage, this diaspora mortgage is a very big topic. So I'm happy if you want to talk about that just after. But you've got those people that go down the mortgage route, or they go down the payment plan route. Normally what I do is the same way you deal source, I will source properties. So based on the budget, I will go out and be like, okay, based on your investment profile, what you're looking for, you might want to potentially buy property that's in a prime location, in which you're going to be able to get X number of revenue generated because your property is in a high income location, right, where you can generate that certain return. So I'll go out and source the property essentially for them, present back approximately, like, you know, it depends on what they pay me to do, but it depends, like, I will then come back and present to you the type of properties we've got available. We'll then figure out, okay, based on seasonality factors, because Ghana is highly seasonal, we will then start to look at, okay, what is the potential return on your investment? What is the vacancy period might look like? What is the occupancy periods might look like, right? And then I will then connect you with the developers. I'll handhold you through that process. We will do like a house inspection. We will do a land search, a due diligence to make sure that the person who's also selling you the property is actually the rightful owner to sell you the property, right? We will then connect you to a lawyer, so that the lawyers will then review what is called an SPA, a sales and purchase agreement, to understand that the covenants that the developer has promised to give you is essentially what you're gonna uphold your end of the bargain as well. We then look into the processes in which you're going to be sending money. So you're going to use an escrow account, you're not going to use an escrow account, right? Then we'll be going through the process of, you getting through the paperwork and making sure you review the paperwork. And then sometimes you might buy a property that's off plan, so pre-construction. So it's just a matter of you paying installments until that property is being built. Or if you're buying something that's already built, then it's a matter of you closing on that, and then you get your keys. And then whether or not you're looking to set up Airbnb, then I will come in and maybe help you to set up that Airbnb, for example, and list it and so on and so forth. So the process is quite long. And the problem is a lot of people skip a lot of the things I've just mentioned. And they come to me after and be like, oh, Lorraine, I don't have a lawyer. I'm like, you should have had a lawyer whilst buying the property. Yeah. Oh, Lorraine, the developer has defaulted and they've delayed on their property, the build out. I was like, well, did you check what the SPA said? So these are the processes, the things that I bring that hand holding guidance and support through the process for my clients.
What are some diligence or non-negotiable things that people need to do when going through this process? What I guess the top three, or what top three things
Top
people should
three,
do?
checking that the person you're buying the property from is actually the rightful owner. It sounds so simple. I've
Mm,
even started to do that in the UK. Now I'll go on to because it's so engraved in me.
yeah,
If I
yeah,
was
yeah.
somebody, I'll literally go and check the land's what is it called in the
Land
UK?
registry, yeah,
Land registry, and I'll go and check and
yeah,
I'll pay my £15 and I'll get it.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
in Ghana, the process is not like that. The process to get your land to check the land registry is about £200 equivalent to go and
Wow.
check. The way that we pay £15 and you get that report within 24 hours.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
Ghana, it doesn't work like that. In Ghana,
yeah.
you have to do that. So that's one of the things I do. One of the other things I do, if I'm buying an already built property, I'll get a house inspector. That house inspector will check the the structural quality, soundness of that property to make sure that nobody's cut corners. The EPA, so the Environmental Protection Agency, all of that kind of work has been done as well. Another one that I would also make sure I do is check the warranty period. So some developers and some property owners won't pass on a warranty period, or they might cut it short to like 6 months. I'm all about negotiating that to prolong it, because in Ghana, when you're building, especially the land, a lot of land areas are waterlogged. So when you're building property, the structural what's the word I'm looking for? Ah the structural
Structural
sound,
makeup of the property, or
something like that, but there's the actual term that's just completely gone from my mind. But essentially that you need to verify it, because it could be that cracks emerge in your property over time
yeah,
as the property is settling. Is it going to cause structural defects and
yeah,
difficulties to the property? You want to make sure you're protected, not from a fixtures perspective, but also from a structural perspective.
makes
So
sense,
those are
makes
some of
sense.
the things that I make sure are non-negotiables for me.
No, makes sense, makes sense. And you touched on it before, but what are some of the financing options? So I know you mentioned, for example, potential mortgages. Obviously, it might be good for you to go on and just touch on the fact that people from different places also go for different options as well. Again, um, there might be people listening from different places, and so they're probably suited to invest in different
Yeah.
ways. But what are different um, financing options that you come across, and like, yeah, which ones are the most common? Or
Yeah, it comes down to 3 or 4 options. First is cash is king. In Africa,
yeah,
cash
yeah,
is king, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So if you've got cash, go with cash, but pay for it through escrow accounts so that your money's protected.
yeah. Okay.
The second thing is diaspora mortgages. So there are a number of banks in Ghana that provide mortgages to Ghanaians who have heritage, parentage, or citizenship. So meaning that they can demonstrate that through their lineage or parentage that they're Ghanaian, or they can demonstrate that they have a Ghanaian passport, a Ghana card, etc., etc. Then you're entitled to a mortgage of an LTV of about 70/30. So you will then put down a 30% deposit, and then the bank will finance the remaining 70%, right? Or 80/20, depends on where the property is. If it's in a prime location in Accra, you will get up to 80%, depends on your own affordability, right? The problem is that cost of capital in Ghana is quite expensive.
Okay.
So
What
in
kind of interest rates? What kind of interest compared to UK?
double digits in Ghana, where in
Ooh,
the UK it's
ooh,
single digits. So we're talking
ooh.
on the dollar. Yeah, we're
Mm.
talking on the dollar.
So
The
cash
most
is king then. Cash is king basically.
it is. On the
Mm,
dollar, you're looking at paying about 10 to 14%
mm,
interest. Yeah. But I've used it before, right? I've used that mortgage before, and the reality is what you could do is use it to just start and then find cheaper capital to or cheaper debt options. Like
yeah.
I actually remortgaged my property in the UK and then use that to finance property in Ghana, for example, release
Okay. Nice,
equity.
nice, nice.
So that's one of the ways. And then the third way is payment plans, so interest-free payment plans.
Okay.
Uh, People that are developers, there's a load of developers in Ghana. Most of the developers will offer interest-free payment plans over the duration which the property's been built. So if the property is pre-construction and it takes maybe 3 years to build, you can have that 3-year period to pay in installments interest-free, essentially, right? And you can lock in early bird pricing by getting in earlier and getting off-plan property. The fourth option is rent to own. So some companies allow you to put down like a 50% deposit. You can move in and you can essentially spread out the remaining payment over like 5 years by essentially renting it, like a shared ownership type of scheme. So yeah, that kind of that.
As well, that interest free.
It's interest free, but the downside is that property is not going to be in your name until you finish paying, right? And they've got the right to potentially kick you out because they own, a lot of it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. Really good. I mean, the next part is obviously the part I think a lot of people have been tuning in for. Location. It'd be good to hear where some of the hotspots. I know you're the plug man, so don't hold anything back. But what are some of the hotspots in Ghana?
Yeah.
Give us a couple of, low key ones. What are some of the
People have to
amenities?
pay for the low key ones. That's why I do what I do,
Give us some gems, man. Give us some gems.
Do you know
What are
what?
some of the areas? Or give me maybe three, four top areas that people.
Most people traveling to Ghana know about these 3 locations. That's a hook in itself. Most people traveling to Ghana know about these 3 locations. They know about Labone, East Legon, Cantonments, right? Those are the locations that a lot of the expat communities, when they're traveling for Christmas, they tend to gravitate towards. Yeah. But there are other locations that are up and coming. There's other locations that are prime. So airport, for example, a lot of people go there. The great thing about Ghana is our capital city, Accra, the airport is actually in the center of the city. So if you are like, it's like, for those of you that know about London, for example, an example of this will be like London City Airport. Even though London City is still east, like imagine your airport being in Victoria, right? That's basically what Accra is like, where the airport is in the center of town. So a lot of people actually tend to like stay around the airport area. I mean, ain't nobody staying in Heathrow, for example, right? Yeah. So it's an example. The difference in Ghana is that a lot of people want to stay near the airport because it's in the center of town. So airport is a big location. Jolu is a good location. Osu is a location that people go towards. And then you've got up and coming locations: East Legon Hills, Oyarifa, Adenta, Abri, Chado. These locations are up and coming locations at the moment. Botima, Spintex is already prime. Yeah, there's quite a lot.
No, it makes sense. I guess for you, based on obviously sourcing properties for a while there now, what would you say to the audience is a better strategy? I mean, you named a few places. Are you suggesting or are you gravitating to most people doing sort of short-term lets with some of these in locations, or the other locations that are more suited for like long-term lets? What would you say?
Perfect question. Yeah, like short-term let is where, a lot of the expats that are traveling to Ghana gravitate towards prime locations, right? So it's equivalent of, for example, those of you that are from London or understand, like, let's say America or New York, it's the equivalent of you going to Manhattan, right? Or central London. And they're not staying in those locations primarily for a long time unless they are working in those locations. So in those locations tend to be, in our version, it's like Cantonments, Osu, Labone, tends to be where you tend to find a lot of the embassies, like the American embassies around there. So there's people that are working in those areas. So it's either workers that are working for those companies or short-term rent, right? Yeah. But the reality is that there's a correlation between short-term rentals and the seasons in Ghana. Peak season in Ghana is Christmas, Easter, summer holidays. Okay. Around the other times, you've got a risk because you've got low season and therefore you might have higher occupancy rate, higher vacancy rate, right? So the longer term locations is now where we start to look at what does the local market also need. So in Ghana, you're not there for, it's almost like an expat versus local. If somebody's staying there long term, they're going to need long term spaces. Yeah. So those long term locations tend to be in the more affordable places, and where Ghana is now having slowly an increase in their middle income earners. You're tending to find a lot of people are buying property to rent it to these middle income earners, or these locations where they are getting more long-term value, where you've got less risk and more occupancy. So locations include Hatchel, West Legon, North Legon, Oyarifa, Adenta, Achimota, Chado, for example, Abri, locations where people actually live. You know, as opposed to coming in and out, essentially.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, with this next segment, I do want to talk about some of the costs, timelines, and management when it comes to, especially the investor side. Is there any hidden costs or any sort of like things like people often miss when it comes to purchasing properties in Ghana that
Yeah,
maybe you
yeah,
can
yeah.
highlight? Yeah.
A lot of people just come and say, look, this is my budget. I want to buy a property. It's $100,000, right?
Mm,
But the reality is you've got to budget for so much more than that,
mm,
including stamp duty. So there's a tax that the government you have to pay to the government, very similar to obviously in the UK, for
yeah.
example. If you're buying an apartment, you've got your service charges that you need to budget for as well. So you're going to be paying like for maintenance, etc. You probably also want to budget for other taxes like ground rent, property rate, or rates that you'll pay annually. You probably want to budget as well for legal fees. So some people, you know, won't get a lawyer, so they forget about budgeting for that as well. So these are some of the costs that I highly recommend that when somebody's thinking about buying a property in Ghana, you don't just think about the property price, but you think about also if you're buying for investment, you need to have a bit of a cushion for your down seasons where maybe you're not getting the Airbnb rentals and who's gonna cover your mortgage or your payments,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
having a little bit of a cushion there as well.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. And what's the typical timeline from start to finish for buying? Let's say I just buying an apartment, or yeah, just let's say apartment, not necessarily buying land or development, just buying a ready-made apartment.
Ready-made apartment, you in 3 months essentially. If
Oh,
you want to be able to do your search, you want to pay, you got your money available, you're getting everything in your name. I'll say the quickest, a couple of months, longest, probably 6 months or so.
yeah, yeah. It's very
Yeah.
similar to UK market then. Very similar then, because even UK market takes let's say anything from 3 to like 6 months sometimes. So
Mhm.
yeah, similar, similar. When it comes to management as well, is it? I know you mentioned obviously the more long-term lets versus the short-term lets. What's the process of somebody, let's say I've invested in Ghana, getting someone to manage it? I guess are you good at connecting people to the different management people, and how does that work as well in terms of the
So
process?
there's a lot of property management companies in Ghana, but you have to be careful because I've heard so many stories, right? Especially
Mm,
in the country. There's people that have paid, like, let's say, for example, you have rented it and you've given it to a property manager. They will normally take between 8 to 10%
right.
of income to manage a property. But there's times where, for example, you might not even know that the person's renting it out to somebody behind your back.
Mm,
I've heard that like sometimes the gate man, so the security man, is now playing like property manager because he now knows who's coming in and out. So he knows that the apartment is empty this time. He's now bringing in somebody else to rent it out. He's making his income, and you're just like, nah. So
oh, God.
it's it's a bit mad unless you really know. But yeah, there are property managers, and now what I'm also pushing the narrative, but a lot of people are doing this as well. But it's still in its infancy, but rent to rent is now growing in Ghana as well. So where you are not living in Ghana and you own a property in Ghana, there are people that could potentially rent it from you. So you have your stable income, and then they would now take the risk by putting it on like a booking.com or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
booking.com. I tell you for free. Booking.com can bring you people every single day. Every
Yeah.
single
Just
day,
booking.com alone.
just booking.com alone. However,
Yeah.
the risk,
Mm,
the difference between booking.com and Airbnb in Ghana is that Airbnb, of course, is taking your details like your identity, etc., etc. It's got the deposit payments and all of that stuff, right? And you're going by reviews. Booking.com doesn't have that. So
wow, wow, West. Just anyone that comes, just
anyone, and that's the risk. So the reality is on booking.com, you normally get very, very short term. You get one nighters, right? Whereas Airbnb, you tend to get like 2 weeks, 1 week, etc. Booking.com, somebody just coming, they're gonna say they're coming, but they end up don't even showing up. So you get a lot of no shows with booking.com, whereas Airbnb has more of a higher rate of shows, essentially.
okay, okay, okay. I mean, what I was gonna ask as well is it would be good to get like a case study of a recent client you had maybe in the last couple of months, maybe one or two that are slightly different. Maybe someone's got like a 50 to 100K budget, or someone's got like a 50K budget, or maybe a bit less, and someone's got like maybe a 100K budget. Maybe one used mortgage, one used cash. maybe just a quick case study, just so that people can put themselves in those shoes and see how it would be for them.
I had an African American who had a $1.5 million budget and wanted to buy a property in prime locations, 4 or 5 bedroom house, pool, already built property. So I will source properties that are in that range for her. We will then, go through the entire process until handover, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Then you've got the person who maybe has, a budget of about $80,000 to $100,000 and looking for rental income. So normally with that budget, you can get probably like a studio apartment, somewhere between
What location? Yeah.
in prime locations. You can get between $80,000 to $100,000. You can get a studio apartment in prime location. We're looking at about a 25 to 35 square meter property, for example, meter square. I always get confused. And you're buying the studio essentially. Oh, my clients have bought literally, I mean, even yesterday, somebody is buying a studio through me. So you essentially what I walk you through is identifying what you get for your budget, for example. That will go on the market. Once you've purchased it, you essentially then, I normally will then help to get it onto the market. So I'll then list it on Airbnb, and then, you're the one that could either manage it, or you could have a property manager who will take your 8 to 10%. So yeah, I've got different cases all the time, but typically, if you were to look at it, like I said, in a prime location, $1.5 million will get you a great property in a central location. $80,000 to $100,000 will get you a studio in a prime location. $200,000 to $300,000 will get you a 3 bedroom house in an up and coming location. $500,000 will get you a good decent house, or $300,000 will get you a good decent house in a prime location. So yeah, there's a big range.
Makes sense. I think with some of the different profiles, I guess, are you? I see you doing it anyway, but based on the profiles, are you using that to base a lot of your marketing in terms of getting out there and going on the road and meeting people? Or are you doing most things online, or yeah?
It's a great question. So I do, number one, I do property tours. So some people contact me, and if I'm in the country, I will take them around. If I'm not in the country, I have my team on the ground that will take them around to different properties. In December, normally most Decembers, we do a property tour, so people can reach out to me, and I could add you up to the tours. Or Easter, we do the tours around Easter and Christmas, because most people are traveling around those times. But yeah, my content typically, the average person.
You do some extreme content, by the way, as well. I see your stuff.
Appreciate it.
I like it. I do like it. It's definitely pushing the needle there. I do like it. I'm gonna take a leaf out of your book as well soon. I'm just a bit shy, but I'm gonna get onto it as well.
I appreciate it, man. Whatever we can do, like, to get the message across, we gotta do it.
Literally.
But the vast majority, if I was to look at it across if we look at a bell curve, for example, the vast majority of people are within the bracket of like the 60K to 200K budget dollars, right? And then you've got people either side of that. So most of my content will be directed at people that are within the budget of like the 60 to, let's say, even $300,000, like in that bracket, right? And then you've got people that will reach out to me that are like, they've got the $1 million budget plus, and they don't want their face to be out there. They don't want other people to know about what property they're buying, right? So I won't really be pushing that, because the kind of clientele that is, they don't want to see that anybody else is seeing their property. They want it to be unique, right? So you've got the mass market, you've got the people that are kind of like either side.
Okay, cool. And then even with that, I guess, is it a thing of the percentage of people within the main bracket, which is, like you said, around 60, 80 up to like 300K, are they mainly in Ghana? Are they in America? Are they in the UK? What sort of the percentage, I guess, like ratio, I guess?
Probably 10% Ghana, like clientele.
Well, Africa as well, the generals, Africa as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I probably had one South African client, but most of them are either in UAE, UK primarily, America. Sorry, I'll say probably like 50% Americans. I would say like 30% UK, 20% Europe, and then the rest of it. Did I do my calculation right? I don't think I did. But whatever was left, it was meant to be 10% left, and
Yeah.
10%
Hey,
was.
maths is not my
Yeah.
hey, forget
So
maths right
yeah.
now. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. I think it's such an interesting conversation. Like I said, I think the reason why I'm touching on some of these points is because I feel like the the way in nature people are investing is changing all the time. Um, Typically, when I first started in property around 7, 8 years ago, most people I felt like there was a bit of a barrier mentally to go and invest abroad. I know what you touched on that as well in terms of how you're helping to sort of demystify it and sort of break down those walls. But most people were like, I want to invest in London, and then it was just like Greater London, and then it's like up
Yeah.
north, or like Birmingham, Leicester, and now
Yeah.
it's like
You've
Manchester.
done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
literally. So, but then after us, it's like now it's the next step. The next step after that is like
International.
the UAE is growing. I mean, I've got
Yeah.
obviously friends like Lamide and
Yeah.
Tips and different people that we're collaborating with that they're now getting people to invest in the UAE, and that's become more popularized. But also places like Ghana, South Africa, it's become a huge thing as well. And also just in general, the world has become more globalized. So it's easier to now communicate with someone that's in America that's looking to invest in Ghana, et cetera, et cetera. So just from
Yeah.
your point of view, how much it has it changed over the last couple of years, and how
Yeah.
you helped to like break those walls down in terms of investing
That's a
abroad?
great question. Number one, I do a lot of master classes. So it's interesting the demographics of people that turn up to our master classes. So it just
Yeah,
shows that
Africa,
it's very
yeah,
global. So that's a really great telling sign. But secondly, I think what I found is because of the economy, some people just frankly cannot afford to buy in the UK.
yeah, yeah,
And so they're looking for alternative ways to be able to still own property but not
yeah,
spend that much.
yeah.
Let me give you a prime example. In the UK, we know probably like rental yields are what 4-6%, we'll say. Maybe we look in like London.
London, you're talking 3, 4%. Up
Yeah,
north, maybe a bit better, maybe like 5, 6, 7%. Yeah.
yeah. And then central London, how much is a typical one-bedroom apartment in the center of London?
I mean, we're talking close to a mil probably,
There you
or at
go.
least 750K plus maybe.
And then you're getting your 3 to 4%
Yeah,
return,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. They're not even
So
buying it for yield at that point. They're just buying it for
for yeah. But
yeah.
let's okay,
They're just holding it like a bank. Yeah, at this point.
exactly. But let's make it more accessible, right? Let's say, for example, somebody who's buying their first property in the UK, in London, right?
Mm.
The average person will probably spend what, 300-400?
Very, very
Or
minimum. That's even still outskirts. But yeah, very
okay,
minimum.
let's just use that as an example. And then
Yeah,
maybe they wanted to rent it out, they're gonna get their 3-4%,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Now, in Ghana, a one-bedroom apartment in a prime location, they can get for about $150,000,
Mm,
right?
mm, mm,
And then you're going to make 8 to 10% return on your investment, right? Obviously, not guaranteed. There's
Of course,
seasonality,
and
capital's at risk.
everything. Yeah,
I want to put all my disclaimers out there, right?
yeah, yeah.
But the reality is that somebody could use yet less money to generate higher return on their investment
Yeah,
as opposed to buying it in the UK, right? Of
yeah.
course, everybody wants to have their home, you want to be able to, etc., like make sure you got your base. But for those, I've had clients that say, look, I can't even afford to buy in the UK, so I'm going to actually just buy in Ghana, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah, that's what it
So
definitely
that's
comes.
the reality. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's really, really interesting that it's happening. I think another thing that I'm realizing is that what's been quite good is people are way more aware of different economies, different markets, and I think that's where Ghana's done really well in the last 10, 20 years, where it's not even just the actual real estate. It's almost like that's almost like a byproduct of the country setting out on a good example of economy that is strong, that is growing. As you mentioned, there's a growing middle class that's there, meaning that there's a big opportunity for developers to go there and produce affordable housing. So before that, you can even get to the property. What was able to give those returns for the investors is that strong economy, and I think a lot of people are probably looking at that as a reason why they want to go there. It feels a bit safe, like investing in Ghana now doesn't feel
Yeah.
like a risk. It feels more of a. It actually feels more of a safe bet. In fact, if anything, it's the other way now. It's like, oh, am I getting in too late? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Am I getting in too late?
Yeah.
And all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, which is a
Yeah.
great place to be, especially for you that's built your brand. And I think for a lot of us are like for me especially, I'm definitely looking at connecting. Obviously, we'll speak after this, but connecting with more and more people that can make those arrangements because I feel it's our responsibility as well. Like again, I'm not a financial advisor and I don't give a financial advice, but when it comes to connecting people to right deals. It's the numbers. It's the numbers, right? How much you're putting down, what return are you getting?
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter where you're getting that. It's more about, where it's able to provide that in a safe environment where I think it's even suited to a lot of the UK investors because they are more conservative. You know what I mean? They're more conservative. Like and there's good financial options. It's a stable economy. They're used to going there.
Yeah.
So it's not that it's unfamiliar.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of pros, and I think
but there's cons though. But there is cons, and I think it's important that everybody transparently knows.
100%. I mean, it'd be good to touch on more of them as well. Is there any ones that you feel like anyone that's listening might not be aware of? Where, I mean, investing in general is a risk. I think some people forget that as well. There's no guarantees with it as well, and I think investors are becoming more and more aware of that because of the content we're putting out there. But what are some of the stuff that you do think people need to be super duper aware of when it comes to investing in Ghana in particular?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, like everything you said, I agree with, but I think we should not negate the fact that the economy still does have challenges and problems, right? The currency is still quite volatile. A lot of the economy does peg their currency on the dollar, which means that for locals, effectively they're priced out of a lot of markets, right? So you talk about affordable housing. The reality is there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a 2.5 million deficit in Ghana for affordable housing. So people that do have investments or finance on capital and want to get into the affordable market, please do, because there's a deficit there, and that's where a lot of the capital is needed. I do speak more towards the luxury expat market, right? But I do not negate the fact that there is work that needs to be done with the Ghanaian economy. I don't want people to see that I'm here sugarcoating things, because there is a reality to it, right? But in terms of the things that are the downside is that people do get scammed, right? If you don't check that you're buying a property from an actual legit source, then you potentially are at risk of scams. Secondly, some people will build pre-construction, but with your money. So they might have a plan to build a, 10-story apartment block with maybe, 40 units in there. They're going to be waiting for people's payments in order for them to finish that building. So there's a risk there. I mean, I had a client literally just this week message me and be like, they spent $150,000 on a 1-bedroom, and the project is stalled. Right. So unless you find a developer who's pre-financing and not relying on your financing to build, then it means that unless they get all those 40 buyers to come and bring their money, they're not going to be progressing with the development. Right. So you have risks of off-plan development, and there have been situations in Ghana right now where there are legal cases where people are trying to get their money back because developers have taken all of their money and they have not built the properties. Right. So that risk is there. And that's why I'm all about sharing the positives, but also the negatives, so that people truly understand and make an informed decision.
Makes sense. That's great. Yeah. And I mean, I don't want to dive too deep into it this episode, because I think I did want to touch more on the side of the luxury expat market. But when it comes to, I guess, the land and people actually developing back in Ghana, is that something that is a growing trend as well? Any idea of what's happening with that as well?
Yeah, so land is increasing. Let me give you an example. I bought my first piece of land in 2012. Back then it was like £3,000. Now you can't get land in single digits anymore. If you're going to buy land in prime locations, you're paying about $100,000 for a piece of land in prime locations, and we're talking a plot size which is about 1/4 of an acre.
Wow.
Right, and so you are not 1/4 of an acre, 1/8 of an acre, right? And that's just to give you. So normally land in Ghana is divided in plot size, and plot sizes are like a 70 by 100 or 60 by 100 foot. So it's just feet or meters. I always forget myself. Somebody can remind me. Sorry, apologies. But effectively, people are familiar with 100 by 100, 80 by 100, 70 by 100, 60 by 100, right? In terms of plot sizes, which is approximately, to give it into perspective, about 1/8 of an acre. Now, when you're buying a plot in a centralized location, let's say, for example, East Legon, the prices of those are no less than 50, 60, 70,000 pounds, right? To buy that piece of land. So land is appreciating. Probably the only thing in Ghana that's guaranteed to appreciate is land, right? So land is a solid investment in Ghana. However, only if you're buying it, because in fact, equally, and more importantly, the court cases in Ghana there is 60% of cases in the court system in Ghana are to do with land disputes.
Wow.
So the same way that there is an increased number of people buying up land, and land is now becoming more and more of a commodity, it's the same way that there are more legal cases around it. So personally, for me, a lot of people come to me. I want to help have, because it's an easy, it's quick, it's the barrier to buy land is much lower than buying property.
Yeah.
However, I tend to shy away from showing people land. I much rather show people property, because there is, somebody actually spent money building on that property, so it's less likely that there's a dispute. There's always challenges. There's always a risk, right? But it's just so that people are aware.
Yeah, no. Okay, cool. That's good. And then just to round up, with regards to resources out there, obviously I know you're gonna plug, or we want you to plug your own platform as well, but outside of you and just in general, is there any resources that people or you could recommend to people starting off in terms of learning? And again, plug yourself if that helps. But yeah.
There's a lot of fellow YouTubers that are doing what they're doing as well. But you can check out my YouTube channel, which is just search my name, Lorraine Wright, where I take people through that journey. Even if you want to know more about the land buying process, I've got a video out there about land buying. If you want to know about the mortgages, I've got videos about mortgages. If you want to learn about the process, Airbnb, is all on my YouTube channel. Or you can follow my Instagram, which is Lorraine H. Wright. You can follow my TikTok, Lorraine H. Wright. You can go to my website, which is diasporatohome.com. And on my website, in fact, I do have some free guides. So if you are looking for a free guide on how to get started, check out diasporatohome.com/5 things, because that will talk you through 5 things that you need to do to get started in real estate in Ghana.
Okay, perfect. And we can round off with that. Lorraine, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Again, we're going to be doing a lot with Lorraine in the future. We've got a lot of things planned at the moment, so stay tuned for her. But this is a good introductory podcast, I guess, to let people know what you're doing. I'm sure they already heard about you before, but if not, go check her out again. And thank you for listening. Obviously, any questions, feel free to send through to Lorraine directly or to us, and we'll connect you. And hope you enjoyed the episode. So for everyone out there, stay blessed, stay invested, and peace.